So I'm Chris, and this is the first in a series of episodes about racism in America. And we're asking the question, is America a racist nation? And this is part one. Today, I've got a great guest. His name is Abanoop, and he's here to tell us his story. Abe, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hey guys, first of all, I want to say thank you, Chris, for having me on your show. I love Patriot Party News. I'm not gonna lie, I'm giving you a little shout out here at the beginning. Um, as Chris said, my name is Abanoob Iskander. I'm originally from Egypt. We moved here when I was about 7 years old. My mother, my father, my brother, and I. And we've been living in Texas ever since, with the exception of a couple of years in Florida. Um, yeah, that's a little bit about me.
So, when did you move to the U.S.?
We moved here in 2001, and actually it was right after 9/11. We were supposed to come here on September 15th, which ironically is my parents' anniversary. And then 9/11 happened, and all the airports shut down, obviously, so we were unable to come. So we ended up coming in October 15th, 1 month later. And I still remember to this day when 9/11 happened. We, being a Christian family, were actually more terrified than ever because when 9/11 happened in the streets, people were yelling, Allahu Akbar and death to America and all
And
this
that's
other
in
radical
Egypt,
things.
right?
In Egypt,
In
yes.
Egypt, yeah.
Yeah, when we were supposed to be coming here. Yeah.
So, why were you afraid being a Christian in Egypt over there just because they were saying Allah Akbar? Did you guys feel like they were going to start persecuting Egypt or Christians?
No, that's a great question. So the reason we actually ended up coming here is because my mother was a Christian female doctor, which are three very frowned upon things. At least at that time, I'm not familiar with the environment in Egypt now, the economy and all that stuff. But at that time, she was actually getting death threats from some of her patients that she was doing pro bono work for. And my father, as soon as he heard that that was happening, he said, "That's it. I'm gonna head to New York." And a couple months later, we were supposed to join him.
Wait, I'm really confused. This was the people that she was helping?
Yes,
They
yeah,
were.
she was doing pro bono work at her clinic for them, and I guess they were. I don't know. I honestly couldn't tell you. There is no rationale to where that is acceptable, but that is what was happening. She was getting death threats from her patients who were doing she was doing pro bono work for.
And obviously, it was credible enough that they felt like they needed to leave,
Oh
right?
yeah, yeah. And this isn't unheard of. In the 20 years that we've been here in the states, there have been three church bombings at the church we used to go to. Actually, one of which was during Easter. A bunch of radicals walked into the church with machetes. They boarded the doors. They killed a bunch of people with the machetes, and then they set off a bomb before they exited.
Holy crap.
This is not something that is unheard of whatsoever.
So, I mean, it's fair to say that your family is not, or they're perfectly familiar with persecution,
Oh
but
yeah,
it's not necessarily because of your skin color. It was because of your religious beliefs, right?
yes, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's 100%
So,
accurate.
so I mean, basically, as in most of your life, you've been in the U.S., right?
Yes.
And you immigrated here, so you weren't born an American citizen, but you did immigrate to the U.S. You feel like America is your home, right? That's is your country.
Oh
There's
yeah,
right.
100%. I mean, I was even, and you know this, Chris. I was in the army. I mean, I felt like I owed America something for saving my family's life. You know, so 100%. Yeah, I feel at this point I don't even know what Egypt is like. So this is my home. Yeah,
So, okay, that's a good question. So you were in the army.
correct.
So I was in the Navy,
Yep.
and personally, I had one issue with racism in the Navy, and it was when I was in boot camp. We were senior recruits, and we got told to go down and talk to a junior recruit division because they were having problems with racism, right? And we went in and we just yelled at them for 4 or 5 hours about how there's only one color in the Navy and it's blue.
Yeah.
And then we made them sing "Proud to Be an American," and they played this song. Everyone was bawling their eyeballs out, but it was actually really compelling,
I love it. I
right?
love it.
Like honestly, it wasn't until recently where race has even become an issue. When you were in the army, did you feel like racism at all? Especially because you were Arab. I mean,
Right.
you have Arab skin color anyway.
So that's a good question. And honestly, so there was a lot of joking about it, but it was never anything serious. You know, we were just kind of. Am I allowed to cuss on this channel?
Yeah, you do whatever you want.
All right. Yeah. So it was a lot of just shooting the shit kind of thing. You know, they'd make fun of me for being Arab, or if we got extra fire duty at night, they'd be like, "Ah, it's because of that damn Arab." And then we'd make fun of the gingers, and we'd make fun of. Sorry, that's not an acceptable term nowadays. But we made fun of each other, but it was never anything serious, and I never had any doubt in my mind that any one of my battle buddies, my brothers, had my back at any point. So it was never anything that as serious as what was going on in Egypt. I have had one or two racist, quote unquote, moments in my life, but that was never when I was in the military. That was never an issue back then.
All right, well, we'll come back to that.
Yeah.
The funny thing is that locker room talk can actually be pretty intense.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just how guys communicate. If we actually like each other, we just give each other a hard time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, I'm fat. I know I'm fat. That's an easy target, right? But all right, so you said that you've had some experience with racism. Why don't you tell us what examples you have, what that was like?
All right. So one that really resounds with me, and it wasn't even that bad to be honest with you, but I was in high school, and I was dating this girl for 4 or 5 years. And our senior year, we were going out on Friday night to go to the movies, to the dollar theaters. And after the movie was done, we came out. I had borrowed my mother's car to take us there. We come out, and I'd left the headlights on, so the battery was dead. So everyone that was passing by, we were trying to flag them down, hoping that somebody can give us a jump start. And an older couple was driving by, and they're the only ones that stopped. Older white couple, and the guy looks at my girlfriend at the time, and then he looks back at me, and he tells her, "As long as you're with this N-word, no one's gonna stop to help you." He drove off, and then he ended up coming back around. His wife was an absolute sweetheart. She actually talked him out of it, and she came back and apologized to me. He still didn't talk to me the rest of the time. He talked to her, and he even tried to give her advice that she shouldn't be with someone like me, but his wife was an absolute sweetheart. And I honestly, you could kind of put that on his age. He was a much, much older gentleman, and that was acceptable during that time. But that doesn't make me feel like America in general is a racist country whatsoever.
He called you the N-word?
Yeah.
No, but did he call you like a sand N-word?
No, so I was in football, and it was like right after two-a-days. So I was much, much darker than you see me now, especially with quarantine right now. I've lost many, many shades.
All right, I feel that. So is that the one that sticks out the most, but do you have any others?
Yeah, that's the one that sticks out the most. I have one for a buddy of mine, actually. I think you met him at my wedding, but he had moved to Kentucky right after high school with his parents. And my buddy, he actually skateboarded for a very, very long time. He was at the skate park in Kentucky, and it was pretty late. It was like 9:30, 10 o'clock, and this car just rolls up, and he doesn't think anything of it, right? People are showing up to the skate park. They're going to skate. It's cool. They immediately surround him. One of them hits him over the head with the back of a skateboard, and they proceed to just jump his ass, for lack of a better phrase.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and then they just kept yelling out racial slurs. That one was sand N-word.
Did he know? Did he know who they were?
No idea.
Just random people, huh?
No idea. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's crazy. That scares me. Like I don't like hearing that at all. Like
Yeah. But even if you ask him, he lives in Georgia now, so unfortunately you wouldn't be able to bring him on the show. But if you asked him, he would tell you the exact same thing. He does not think that America is a racist country. There's always radicals in every single country, in every single group. But you can't judge an entire nation based on a few people's actions.
what blows my mind about the skateboarder story is that skateboarders are supposed to be kind of chill. Like they're supposed to be kind of anti-government. Like
Yeah, like, hey,
hippie
what's up,
dudes.
man?
Like it sounds like maybe those guys were like gang, just douchebags. I don't know what better word, but anyway, that sucks.
Yeah, yeah.
But have you ever like had any issues with the police or any kind of like systemic things that kind of held
Never,
you back?
never, man. I remember one time when I was in college, I had a Mazda 626. It was a manual transmission, and the clutch actually punctured the uh, what's it called? Like the brake line, and uh, my car just wouldn't start. Like I just couldn't move, and I was at a red light, and it was like 2 in the morning. I was running back to my apartment to grab some stuff, go back to my girlfriend's house because we were going to the Cowboys game the next day, and a cop pulls up and he's like, "Hey man, is everything okay?" He never had his hand on his gun or anything like that, you know. And I was like, "Well, I can't move my car. Like I need some help." I already called AAA, but they said it's going to be like an hour and a half. He was like, "Well, tell you what. Thankfully, you have a manual transmission, so you can just leave it in neutral, and I'll drive up real slow behind you, and I'll help you push it into a parking lot." And that's what he did. And he waited with me until AAA showed up. I've never ever had like a bad experience with a police officer.
Let me ask you a question. So, when you were a kid, there's this idea that people of color have to have a talk with their kid about interacting with the police. Now, for me, I also had a talk from my dad about how to be respectful to cops.
Right.
And every negative interaction I've had with a cop was a direct result of not following that rule. Right, and this mostly applies as a teenager, because when you're a teenager, you're kind of a smart ass. But did you guys ever have the talk about respect to the cops?
Oh yeah, it wasn't so much respect to the cops as it was just any person, one who's older than you, and two, any person of authority, right? And just it didn't matter who it was, you just don't disrespect them. I mean, growing up, that was kind of common sense in my household. That's not to say there are no racist cops or no racist lawmakers or authoritative figures, but honestly, it's just human nature. You treat somebody with respect, it's going to be really hard to be a dick to you after that.
Well, yeah. I mean, honestly, if you start there, you got to be kind of a special kind of asshole to move it into a negative direction. All right. So, have you ever heard the term passing?
What do you mean?
So, they say like, well, people aren't racist against Asians because they're passing, right? They look white enough.
Oh, okay.
Or
I hadn't heard that.
like if you're trans and you're pretty, then you're passing, right? So nobody would discriminate. But you were saying like your skin tone is normally a lot darker, so people wouldn't be like, "Oh, look, that's just a hairy white dude."
Yeah, yeah.
And you were raised here, so you don't have an accent or anything. But I have met your family, and they do,
Oh, absolutely.
right? So how about them? Have they told you anything about like having problems with police or just individuals that have just been really bad to them because they're Arabs?
No, not
Is
a
Arab
single
the
one.
right term? Like, is for your skin complexion?
Honestly, so it depends. Like if we're talking SATs, then had to put down white. North African is white, right? But yeah, we're considered Middle Eastern. We're considered an Arab country just because it's predominantly Arabs at this point. So I mean, there's really no wrong term to me. But no, none of my family members have ever experienced anything like that. My brother, my mother, my father is almost as white of a complexion as you, Chris. Actually, green eyes. I think that's where I get my last name because it's actually Greek. But none of my family members have ever experienced any kind of prejudice from the police.
Okay, well, would you say that you're a particularly political person? Like, do you follow politics a lot?
Uh, to some degree, I'm not gonna lie, and this is not just because I'm on your show, but it wasn't until you started your show that I started like hardcore following politics, and that's simply just because the media always tries to sway you one way or another. Versus Patriot Party News, and there's a couple other YouTubers out there that just try to get the facts across, and that's what really pissed me off about news media in general. And that's why I tried not to watch it. I would look up articles, oh, this happened, but never that in depth to where, like, oh my God, it's 9 o'clock. I need to turn the news on.
Well, the thing that always trips me out about the media, right, is that it seems like the people that are always having conversations about race never actually talk to anybody that's of a different race,
Yeah.
right? Like, we spend a lot of time together, so when really the people that we interact with are very mixed, right? So I always found it quite comical that there was this impression that the South was super racist.
Yeah.
And I'm like, huh, I don't even have a best friend that's white. Like, oh, you can hear it, lady. She's not happy upstairs.
Oh, poor baby.
But the it just trips me out because it's like, okay, in New York City, maybe you guys have race problems, but around here, we seem to be doing pretty good. Everyone in my neighborhood's Korean or Indian. You know, we all seem to get along just fine.
Yeah, dude. Honestly, like, the aforementioned buddy of mine that got jumped at the skate park, he's actually dating my wife's cousin who lives and was raised in New Jersey. They came much like myself when they were like 4 or 5 years old, and they've been up there ever since. And the first time she ever came to Texas, she was like, "This is not what I thought at all. I thought you were all just ignorant, racist people that rode horses around and chewed tobacco." And, you know, yeah, a lot of people chew tobacco, but for the most part, we're the nicest folks you'll meet. Like,
I mean, I'm sure there are people in Texas that are racist
Yeah.
and awful. I mean, but there are people literally everywhere that suck for a whole variety of reasons. So, I mean,
absolutely.
the reason I wanted to do this podcast in the first place is because people are really scared to talk about this subject. And if we don't communicate with each other and actually talk and like, hey, give people an opportunity to say how they feel, we won't ever come together.
Yeah.
I'm really worried about this critical race theory stuff because, and I've said this before, white people make up 60 something percent of the country. And for generations now, or at least 2 generations, we've really focused on you don't want to see color, you want to see the merit of the individual. But now this critical race theory stuff is coming out and saying if you don't see color, that's racist. And the problem is sure, some people will see color and they'll try to work towards equity, but then as soon as you start telling people, no, color is the most important thing, you're going to start actually having real hate groups come back again. It's going to be like a self-fulfilling prophecy where white supremacy wasn't really an issue
Right.
until you told everybody white supremacy was an issue and that they needed to be more concerned with race, because eventually you're going to have a whole generation of young men who have been focused on their whiteness and they've been told that they were bad, and then initial reaction is going to be negative. So like I worry that what we're doing as a society right now is going to create this problem and it's going to be bad.
Right.
Because we've had so much pent up aggression for so long that that the impact, I don't even know like what it's going to look like, but I'm pretty scared. I mean, do you ever talk about that with your family or anything?
No, not really. I do agree that the more you try to make something taboo, like discussing race, right? The more it's going to cause issues. And let me try to elaborate a little bit. And you touched on this. So, for example, if your kid is born and from the day they're born, you're telling him that he's going to be a doctor, right? He's going to end up being a doctor. It's the same thing with what's happening. From the time these kids are born, they're told police are bad, or they're told that their race is entitled, or whatever stereotypes are out there, right? They're going to become a reality. That becomes their reality. A lot of what our parents tell us is what makes us who we are. So if this continues, it's going to become much, much worse in the next few generations to come. And yeah, I agree with you. That's terrifying. That is absolutely terrifying.
I really like it when people agree with me. That's my favorite thing. So I appreciate that.
You're welcome, buddy.
The what you said there is a good point. Like, the more you talk to a kid about something, the more likely it is. Like, my dad was a staunch Republican, and I was too until recently.
Yeah.
Right now, I'm kind of pissed off at the old GOP, but that's a whole different podcast.
Yeah.
Um,
Have
well,
me back for that.
you know, I had never even heard of critical race theory until like the middle of last year, and even then I didn't understand what it was. But before Trump left office, he banned critical race theory training for federal employees. But like just this week, Joe Biden undid that ban.
Yeah.
Right. So we've seen all kinds of woke stuff in the military already. Like, how do you
In
feel?
the military.
Yeah. How do you feel about the fact that they stood down the army, or they are going to stand down the entire army to make everyone repledge or redo their oath of service and to the Constitution, because they're trying to weed out extremism?
How is that going to weed out extremism?
I don't know. I don't know what the plan is. But
Let's just put our superpower on hold real quick, just so we can be politically correct. How is that fixing anything?
I don't see how it possibly will. But it's not just the Army, actually. I think all the branches are doing it. So they're redoing their oath of enlistment. My thought is that actually what the goal is to weed out patriotism, right? They don't want nationalism. So that what they're really afraid of is people that have like Gadsden flags and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I worry that like once we start introducing all this woke stuff into the military, we might actually have real problems.
Honestly, that kind of pisses me off. That's almost insulting to any military member who's been in for a while. Like, everything that person has done has now just been wiped off the table, and hey, you're just basically nothing. We're going to have you reprove yourself by saying a few words. That is honestly really insulting to military members.
Yeah, and it's completely ineffective. Like, what's it going to do? Like,
Nothing.
if there really was an extremist problem in the military, do you think that making them to swear their oath to the Constitution is going to do anything?
No.
So the funny thing is like, I've always been in the firm belief that the military was like the one place where racism was absolutely not an issue.
Right.
Right? You don't have a problem with racism when you're putting your lives in each other's hands, right?
100%.
So it makes me sad that might stop being the case, because if you tell an 18-year-old soldier the same thing, right? Like, oh, well, you're white, so you're privileged. You're going to build resentment. You know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah.
like, or it could be the other way around. You know, like, you tell a black dude that his white private has some kind of privilege, then maybe that guy's going to start resenting his private. You know, like, all right, I'm gonna send you up that hill to go secure that position where I know you're gonna get shot, but that's because you're a white dude, and or you know, the other way around. You know, it's a white guy is like, well, I just can't stand these black sergeants anymore, so I'm gonna send them up the hill to get shot. It's just
one example like that would cause a chink in the armor. Now, if this became, for lack of a better word, because of what's going on, a pandemic within our military, the armor is gone. We have no front line. We are no longer a superpower at that point because we are fighting ourselves. And that's what's happening in society, even outside the military right now. We are fighting ourselves on every front that we can think of when we should be uniting as a nation.
especially because we've got international players that are gunning for us big time.
Yeah.
I keep seeing stuff about secession and how we'd be better off if we got a peaceful divorce, and I completely disagree.
I saw that video.
I was like, we need to do whatever it takes to stay together, because China, they've got us in their crosshairs. They want us bad. Well, we've kind of gotten away from racism in America.
Yeah, a little bit.
The like the stuff with all the police shootings and stuff. Like, I feel like if the media would just be more honest about what's happening, then people would not be so angry. There wouldn't be so much tension. Like, they did a poll, and they asked black people, how many black people do you think have been gunned down by the police? right?
Right.
And the respondent said, oh, thousands. But the actual number was like 17. And then the number of shootings that happened where the police didn't get charged was even lower, right? So, and each one of those, there was a justifiable cause. There was that one guy that shot the guy that was running away in the back,
Yeah.
and he went to jail. Like all the ones that were really bad, they go to jail. And I'm just like, if the media would just tell the truth, we wouldn't have so many problems. It seems like they're actively trying to destroy the country.
But why? Is it about money? Is it about viewers? Is it about I'm the hottest, news station out there? Because that just seems really, really selfish.
I think that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you might not remember, but when the Facebook and stuff were pretty new, police brutality videos were
All over.
everywhere.
Yeah.
Right? So what happens is all this stuff is algorithm based. So they say, oh, this video is really popular. Like, people click on this. So it spreads further and further and further.
Right.
And so the news organizations, like, they're in it to make money. I get it. But there should be some integrity.
Yeah.
Right? Like, if you know the fact, you need to put it out. At least in my humble opinion.
No, you're absolutely right. And actually, that's exactly, you asked me this earlier. Am I into, keeping up with the news and stuff? And what made me fall off a little bit was watching The Social Dilemma, which covered exactly what you were just talking about. If a video was hot, they continued to push that forward. If you accidentally type into a search engine Republican, you're going to get blasted with Republican heavy media. If you type in Democrat, same thing. And ever since I watched that documentary on Netflix, great documentary if y'all haven't seen it, it kind of turned me off to it until I discovered there was some truth tellers out there, like yourself. And I remember when you told me you were making this channel, I was honestly very, very almost proud because a lot of people are scared to tell the truth, man.
Well, it's dangerous. I mean, like, I'll do interviews on the street.
Yeah.
And people are very leery to answer questions. Like, you'll say, hey, can I, you'll come up to them and smile and say, hey, can I ask you a few questions for an interview? And they'll straight up say, like, well, how are you going to spin it? Are you conservative? Are you liberal? And I'm like, okay, I'll tell the truth. Like, my opinion stuff is all conservative. Like, that's just who I am. But if I'm asking you questions, I'm not spinning what your response is. I'm not cutting or editing the video. Like, I just released a video. It was a 10-minute clip. It was an interview with Kelly.
Yeah, I watched that today.
And she has major problems with the immigration policy and everything. And in my mind, I'm like, well, people can construe this as supporting immigration, but that's not. I don't support lax immigration or anything. But what I'm doing is that's her story.
Right.
And I didn't edit it. I didn't cut it. And I think if we can get back to that, where we're not slicing and editing everything, and we can just put the truth out there,
right,
maybe everyone will chill the heck out.
And I agree with you 100% on that. The only cuts I've ever seen in your videos are when you're going between one interview to the next, because you're not going to have a camera follow you around for half an hour while you find somebody else. But that's exactly what we need, man. We need somebody to actually tell the truth about what's going on without enforcing their opinion on it, and let the people decide. Not people will surprise us, right? Like, I genuinely think people can surprise us if we just get the truth out there. People who have common sense will be able to make their own decisions, and it's gonna better us as a country, I believe.
We need to find a way to incentivize the truth, right?
Yeah.
Because the truth is the media organizations are reacting to the populace.
Mm-hmm.
If we demanded honesty in our media, we would get it.
Right.
But the truth is most of us like feeling angry. It makes us, it's like, ooh, it's exciting. We feel good being angry. If we could encourage people to not want it, right? But I have no idea how to make that happen. Maybe eventually people will get so sick and tired of it that it'll happen, and it probably is.
Right.
right? Like independent media the views are going way up, and then the traditional stuff is going way down. So maybe people are at a tipping point. The question is like, can we get there fast enough?
Well, I think what you just did, and yes, I agree with that. Can we get there fast enough? But I think what you just did was the first step, right? Was actually pointing out the flaw that there is not enough truth being told, that we need to get the truth out there. That's the first step. Now, the second step, I can't answer that question, man. Like, it's like you said, I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to incentivize truth telling. But the first step has been taken. So maybe, more of these independent news medias will be able to come up with something.
We just need to get a way to get it out. I tried to take an ad out on Google.
Yeah.
And they said I could not promote my channel because I was talking about sensitive topics. And I'm like, I'm not out. I'm telling people, keep the country together, right? Don't split up. That would be terrible for us.
Right.
And it's too sensitive. So I can't promote my channel, and I can't do Facebook ads either, right? I can make a video specifically about a topic that it has nothing to do with politics, and
Right.
they'll let me promote that. But as soon as their reviewers see that, they go to my channel and they're like, nope, too many flags.
Are you
Like,
serious?
oh, I'm 100% serious. I got the Google ad rejection yesterday, and then the Facebook, I've got dozens where they've just like, nope, 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 nope. So it's kind of hard to get a message out because you have to grow it organically. So I started Gab in January, and I'm at 700 followers.
Yeah.
Which is great, but to get any kind of reach, it'll take years, and there's just no way. There's no way to promote it right now. So hopefully, we can get some changes there. If they made changes to the laws that made it so they weren't allowed to reject conservative stuff, then maybe we could get the view out that, hey, we're not racist, we're not crazy, and we just love America, and we want it to stay together.
Right. And I guess that's why you said what you said earlier, is that, are we going to make it in time? Because it's like you said, it's going to take years, man. Like, who knows what's going to happen in that
I
time?
don't know. Recently, it feels like we've kind of hit the perfect storm.
Yeah.
For bad stuff. Everyone was locked up. Okay, that made them go crazy. The media was feeding the fire, and then you start turning into like everyone's scared. I don't know. I feel like the next thing that's going to happen is really a bad economic problem, and I don't know.
Could be because of the stimulus check, right?
Well, I don't know. I don't know how it all plays out.
Yeah.
But all I know is we spent like $6 trillion. I don't think people register how many dollars that is.
Well, no, and part of it is on the people, right? Part of it is also on the media. The media needs to be going out there and telling people that, hey, yeah, it's nice. You're getting this check that's going to help you pay a fourth or half your rent. But in the long term, you're going to be broker than you were before, because now your dollar is going to be worth less, right? And you made a video on it, but how many other news stations, like these major news corporations, actually went out there and said, hey, guys, this might hurt our economy down the line?
I don't recall. Not a well, maybe Tucker Carlson. He's pretty on point.
Yeah.
Well, you might not have seen it today, but Biden's released his plan to raise taxes.
Oh.
So
I wonder why.
The funny thing is they're raising the taxes to pay for the stimulus bill, right? So they just gave you $1,400, right? If you are in the right financial bracket,
Right.
but then they're raising your taxes way more than the $1,400.
Yep.
So congratulations, everybody! Enjoy your money.
You get a few votes and people are happy for 2 minutes, and then they realize, oh, wait, I can't even pay for food now.
I'm not a financial planner, but Bitcoin's looking pretty good.
Yeah, man, I saw that earlier.
60K.
Yeah.
It was where it was. All right, man. Well, I could go on all day about politics. The topic for today was racism.
Yes, I'm sorry. We keep digressing.
Yeah,
man.
I
That's
know.
my fault.
No, it's not your fault. I'm supposed to lead the conversation, but I'm kind of new at this stuff.
You're good, man.
So, your friend got attacked
Yes.
and he got hurt. Did that, does that make him feel animosity towards other people because of that incident?
No, not because of the color of their skin. Maybe based on their views, but if your views are to jump somebody who's skating at the park by himself just based on the color of his skin, yeah, I'd be pissed at you too. But he doesn't feel animosity towards any one race or any one people's because of what happened to him. And he was messed up. He got pretty messed up. But he also has common sense. He understands that not every single white person in the world is out to get him.
Did they ever catch them? Catch the guys that did it?
I don't think lawfully I'm allowed to speak on that.
Oh.
Yeah, maybe off screen.
We don't want to get anybody in trouble.
Yeah.
You said that was in Georgia.
No, that was in Kentucky. He lives in Georgia now, but that was when he was in Kentucky.
Was it like a small town or?
Yeah, out in the middle of nowhere, kind of boonies.
I wonder. I wonder what their motivation was. I really wish I could talk to those guys. The problem is I keep hearing that everyone's a white supremacist, but I can't find any white supremacists to talk to.
Yeah.
Right? I know they're on there, and sometimes, when I'm on Gab, people will put racist stuff in my comments.
Right.
But it's so outlandish that I'm just like, come on, this is fake, right? You're trying to set me up to see if I'll be like, oh yeah, that's what I'm all about. It's like, come on. So I just block them. But
I mean, you never know. There are insane people out there. But again, we can't judge an entire nation based on one or two individuals. I won't even say one or two. There are probably hundreds, maybe thousands out there. But we can't judge an entire nation based on a small populace of it. If it was 50% of white Americans, so 30% of our population that were racist, yes, 100%, go ahead. But it's not even that.
Do you understand what the term systemic racism means?
I do not.
Well, I don't think anybody really does. It's kind of like a catchphrase where if I can't actually point to an example of racism, I just say the system is systemically racism or racist.
Pass the buck.
Right, but the funny thing is, right, you'll ask people, okay, I live in a predominantly black neighborhood.
Right.
And everything is systemically racist. But the police chief is black. The governor or the mayor is black. The city councilmen are all black. And it's like, well, wait a minute. Is it the federal government that is running all this systemic racism? Because if it is, I fully support the idea of taking the federal government's power and giving it to your local politicians.
Right.
The problem is there's no such thing as a systemically racist federal law, right? In fact, if it was written to be systemically racist, people would lose their dang minds.
Right.
But everything is supposed to be equal. So it seems like most of these places that are actually having problems with their police forces and stuff, it's all run by Democrats, and it's all kinds of different colors. It's not like there's people that are writing rules and it's just like, all right, well, this is going to get the black people. There is an argument that the war on drugs had a negative impact on black people or people of color.
How so? What is their argument for that?
Well, the idea is that poor people do more drugs. So the war on drugs, like crack, was really bad. They put heavy sentencing on crack for the crime bill. And the funny thing is Joe Biden was heavy in this crime bill, and a lot of Republicans like to give him a hard time about it. And I'm like, no. The crime bill was fine, right? It was bad that that crack was such a problem, but it actually saved lives.
Right.
Right? The communities were asking for these laws. Now, did they go too far? I don't know. I'm not an expert. But the minimum sentencing and stuff sounds evil, but the idea was solid, right? This is the problem. This is killing these communities. We need to implement these rules so that we can save those communities. And I think in a large part it did work, but it did have negative impacts going down the line, with a lot of people being in jail and it wrecking a lot of families. So, but there's no perfect answer, right? Like, so if they're shooting up your street, you gotta take them off the street.
Right.
But also, because you took everybody off the street, now you've got a bunch of little kids that don't have dads in the house.
Right.
But what do you do? I mean, so I think there are genuine arguments that some of the stuff that the U.S. has done in the last, 30, 40 years has had a negative impact. But then the question is, like, was the alternative worse? Right? Like, how do we know? If they hadn't have done the crime bill and crack was everywhere and there was shootings all over the place, then, I mean, wouldn't that have been way, way worse?
Yes, and if you haven't watched the Kelly video, go watch that, because she actually talks about that in Mexico, right? The cartel is all over the place. People are afraid to step outside their house. They can't form together and defend themselves. Some of the police are on the payroll. I'm going to say all. Do we want that to be America? Like, that should have been a common sense thing. This bill is good because it's taking drugs and violence off the streets, right?
Right.
And if poor people are the ones that do more drugs, how are they affording those drugs, man? It's those drugs cost people to become poor because they'll mess with your mind, they'll mess with your body, they'll mess with your family, your relationships, and then obviously your work, so you will become a poor person. But I don't see how poor people can afford to do more drugs than rich people. I mean, being in college, there was plenty of rich folk, or rich kids, I should say, that were doing a lot harder drugs than just, smoking some weed or something.
Yeah, I don't know. I recently watched a documentary about the destruction of Seattle, and it said 100% of the homeless population in Seattle had a drug addiction.
What?
100%.
What, are they just going around passing drugs to homeless people?
Well, no, I mean, I don't know enough about it to talk about how they get drugs.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I mean, clearly there's people that they facilitate that market. There must be a way that those, when they panhandle, they are getting some money.
Right.
And then they're spending that money on drugs. So, I mean, my thing is like, okay, society will never be perfect. All we can do is try to make it as good as possible with the limitations that we're human and humans make mistakes.
Right.
Right? So the one thing that will screw us up is if we can't be a society if we can't be together. So I'm like, instead of saying, hey, well, have you watched the Morgan Freeman speech?
I've not.
So he's doing this interview, and the interviewer says, well, don't you like Black History Month? And then he says, no, I hate Black History Month. And then the guy says, well, why? That's for you. And he says, all right, well, when's your month? And the guy says, oh, well, we don't have a month. And he says, well, then why do I need a month? Right? And Morgan Freeman was like, here's what we need to do. I'm going to stop calling you a white man, and I'm going to ask you to stop calling me a black man.
Right.
And we'll just be men. Right? I feel like we're so close to that. Right? I feel like most people genuinely feel that way. But man, I feel like it's going to start slipping.
Man, I knew I loved Morgan Freeman for a reason, and I really 100% agree with what he's saying.
You've got to watch the video. It's like, gives me chills, man. He's just like, because it's his voice when he says it. So I'm just like, oh my God.
I'm going to stop calling you. God, I can't
That's
even
exactly
try to impersonate that.
It's good. We'll watch it after we're done with this podcast.
Yeah.
Well, man.
But no, I don't think that it's going to happen anytime soon, man. Especially with you saying that they want to focus more on race now. Like, if you don't see color, then there's something wrong with you. Guys, let's pick something, preferably the right thing, not see color at all, and let's just stick to it.
So you're a lot younger than me, and you just recently got married.
I did.
Do you and your wife have conversations about, because your wife's Egyptian too?
Yes.
Right? Do you guys have conversations about what it'll be like to have a little Egyptian kid in America now?
It's not even about having an Egyptian kid in America. We're just terrified to bring any children into this world, honestly. I realized it's probably better to bring kids into the world and raise them right than to just say, hey, let it be somebody else's problem. Somebody else will raise their kid to do the right thing. Um, but it's a terrifying thought to bring kids into this world and have them spend 90% of their childhood away from home because they're in school. Um, and then have them thinking the way that people are thinking nowadays and just contribute to the issue rather than become a solution to it.
Well, I think you're exactly correct, right? Like, you are the exact person that needs to have kids, right? Like, have a bunch of them. I know
You got it.
it's scary, but we need people that have a firm moral foundation to have kids, and to if we can raise a generation of patriotic, moral children, then they can correct the stupid stuff that we're screwing up,
Yeah.
right? Like, the good news is that the people that hate America and believe a lot of this stuff also believe that having children is a terrible, terrible idea, and that humans are a disease on the planet,
Right.
right? So if they cannot have kids, and then families like yours can have a bunch of kids, then maybe if we can make it through this next like 10, 15 years, we'll be okay.
I don't know about a bunch of kids, especially with the value of the dollar about to drastically decrease, but we definitely want to bring some kids into this world and raise them the right way. And I mean, that's all we can do. We're only on this world for so long, and hopefully our kids can continue to teach their kids how to be just decent human beings. That's all it takes is just be decent human beings to each other.
I posted on Gab. I said, if you want to fix America, go have a barbecue with your neighbors.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it sounds ridiculous, but it's that simple. If we can start talking to each other, right? If we can have complicated conversations with people we know and trust,
Right.
and we can get away from all of our interactions being on the internet, I feel like we'll be in solid shape. I'm not saying that all interactions should be off the internet. The internet is a very powerful tool. Social media is a very powerful tool.
Right.
But we have to fix our addiction, right?
100%.
So if we can just go and have a barbecue, and I know Joe Biden said we shouldn't because he hasn't given us permission yet, but I don't really give a crap what Joe Biden wants. So I think I'm going to have a barbecue.
Hey man, good barbecue is good for the soul. I don't think you can don't quote me on that. I'm just joking. But barbecue will I'll keep you from getting COVID during these times. But all jokes aside, I 100% agree with you, man. We actually, so as you mentioned, we just recently got married. That we also recently bought a home, and we started trying to get our neighbors a little bit more. Predominantly white neighborhood, and that's completely fine. Our neighbors are amazing human beings. There's a Facebook group that's constantly out there like, hey guys, found this awesome plumber. If you need a contact information, or our kids are too grown for their car seats now, here's free car seats if you need them. And that's the solution right there, man. We need more people that are just neighborly. Just like you said, go have a barbecue with your neighbor. Go talk to them. Get to know them as a person rather than just being like, oh, yeah, I got a white neighbor. I got a black neighbor. I got a whatever freaking color that doesn't matter kind of neighbor.
Hell yeah. The entire, like, when you look at the American tradition, or like you see old movies and stuff,
Yeah.
it was all neighborhood parties and barbecues and stuff that brought us together. And the reason I thought that was the solution is because we're not doing it.
Right.
Right? I don't know how this applies for the entire country, but at least in my experience, in the neighborhoods that I've lived in, it just doesn't happen.
Right.
Like, we don't know who each other are. But it used to be like, oh man, I'm out of town. Let me call my neighbor. But now it's like, well, I don't really know my neighbor, so it stinks. And also, if we could just find other things like as a collective to enjoy. Like you used to watch the Super Bowl and everybody was excited to talk about the Super Bowl, but now it's like, oh, well, there's politics in the Super Bowl. And oh, what about this TV show? Oh, well, that's got politics in it now. Like we just need politics are important. We need to talk about it, but we also need to have fun.
Right.
And if we can just find ways to make that happen, we'll be in a much better shape.
Oh, 100%.
All right, man. Well, that's all I got. You got anything else?
No, I'm going to shout you out real quick if it's cool with you guys.
For sure.
Check the links in the description. Follow Chris, Patriot Party News, and all his social platforms. Learn the truth for yourself and forget all the other junk. Use that time to get to know your neighbor, have fun, and just, let's all be nice to each other.
All right, man. You're much better at shouting me out than I am. I appreciate it.
Oh, I got you, brother. Thank you for having me on the show.
You're welcome. All right, guys. So that's all we've got for today. Abe and I are going to go get some beers, and we're going to enjoy the rest of the evening. Thanks for watching Patriot Party News. Make sure you like and subscribe. And if you could share and comment, man, I'd really appreciate it. Thanks.